to Jenny's world, keeping it fresh, keeping it real, and keeping it middle-aged. Now don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and don't forget to go visit my website. All the details are down below in the description box. Now today, I really want to take some time and just talk about the events that surround death, especially when it comes of somebody who's in the public eyesight. And then when you find out that that death was suicide, how do people process that in the real world for people who may not have known that person? And this, I think, has been something that I want to talk about for a while, but I feel as though it's just been fast forwarded since we had the death of Caroline Flack. Now, I didn't know her personally, I didn't follow her, didn't know really much about her. Although I've been doing the reviews on Love Island, this was the first episode of Love Island that I'd watched, so I hadn't seen her in there. But I was talking to my daughter about it, and she was saying, oh no, she'd hosted them before and all these other things that she had done. And obviously I was aware of, in the back of my mind I think, and when it happened, that there had been a lot of publicity regarding the assault with her boyfriend, her being charged, but I hadn't really given it much thought. And then obviously we hear that she had died, and then the next day we found out that it was suicide. And then you really start to hear about what drove her to her. Now, her management company were quite open and upfront about saying that a lot of it was about the press and a lot of it was about the CPS in their decision to go ahead and charge her. Now, again, I don't really want to go into the details of this specific case because I don't know them. It just be what I'll be reading about in the paper. But it's really about how other people, what they say, how they interact with you, what they say about you, how that really pushes somebody to the edge. And I think the one thing I really want to talk about is social media. Because we're in this day and age now where you can say what you want, and you can be anonymous, you can hide behind an avatar, a web address, and nobody really knows who you are, but you can go out there and you can post horrible hate messages and say awful words about people with no consequences to you. And I think this is the thing about social media that I don't think gets out there enough, and it only really comes to the surface when something happens. But I think if we talk about social media and the anonymity that you have behind it, it is really quite disturbing. So I have an Instagram account, I have a Twitter account, all newly created this year. I was probably like the worst person to think about having social media, but I quite like it. It gives you an opportunity to comment on things perhaps that you only comment between your family and your friends and colleagues perhaps, but also an opportunity to see what other people are saying, read their comments. And I think when I go and post something or make a comment, it's really about my view, my interpretation of what's going on. And I like to see what other people come back, if they agree, disagree, why they disagree, what their view is. And it's really about trying to get a conversation going. But you have people who take it that next step, and you can't have that thin line. It's like people can disagree with what you say. There's no question about that. I disagree with what a lot of people say, and people disagree with me. But it's when it becomes nasty, when it becomes personal, that it then starts to dig in a little. And I think people, again, have no concept of where that boundary is. And I think that we all talk about, let's not be hating, let's not be mean, be nice to each other. But it's so easy to do the opposite of being nice. It's so easy to be mean. And I think there's a lot of people out there who perhaps say things which may come across as a bit harsh. And sometimes it's not intended like that. It is just how it's been said or come across. But then you've got the other extreme when it is completely intended to be mean and nasty and to cause personal pain. Now we look at this from an adult's perspective, and I kind of like feel as though when you're growing up, especially when I was growing up as kids, you kind of like grow up with that, you know, you say some mean and nasty things but you don't mean it, and 10 minutes later you're all hugging around, you're laughing and joking. And then I think one of the phrases which kind of like stuck with me is, sticks and stones may break my bones but words will never hurt me. And I think I kind of agree with that mantra. I kind of like went round with my friends. We had our ups and downs, name calling, etc. But you grow out of that. You kind of like grow. And you kind of think it's not really necessary. And then when it continues into being a teenager, I know I certainly had that. You kind of like have to be a bit hardened to that. But all of that is done to your face, or it's done behind your back, but you know who's doing it. There's no hiding from it. You either confront the person and address it, or you just let it go. From my perspective, I personally either confront it or I let it go. And if I let it go, it means I really couldn't give a toss. You didn't mean that much to me. But there were some instances where I confronted and that behaviour didn't change. And it hurt, but I kind of like had to get over it. But it didn't stop me from feeling quite pained that somebody would go to an extent and being that mean and horrible. And not to my face, but to other people. But you kind of like, as I said, I was growing up, you kind of got used to it. And as you got older, it didn't really happen. But as I said, that's really about face-to-face, or your friends saying, oh, that person said that, I heard, and you can kind of like understand that. But in the era that we're in now with social media, you don't even have to be anywhere near. You can be in a different country and say mean and nasty things about somebody, and somebody wouldn't even know. And you know, you got Twitter, you got your Instagram, they're kind of like instant. Somebody can just post a message and it's there in your face straight away. And not even just to you, but it's out there for the public to see as well. So not only are you getting mean and nasty words, messages to you personally, but then other people are seeing that. And then people are able to, if you're on Twitter, they're able to kind of like retweet that or like it. So from an individual, if you're getting that, you've got somebody who's posted something mean and nasty to you, then you can see if people have liked what they've posted, then you can see if people have retweeted that. So it's no longer one-on-one, it could be one on thousands, one on hundreds, or just in the tens. But if you're a celebrity, I'd imagine that's more in the thousands. And so we come back to this whole thing about social media, and it's kind of like where people get to hide. They don't have to show their true face. When you go on social media, you can just come up with a different name, a different character. You don't even have to show your face. You can have an avatar. On my social media, for my Instagram and my Twitter, I've got my logo for my website. For my YouTube video, obviously I've got my picture on there, so that's my face. People can see me, they can see who I am. But a lot of people on Instagram and Twitter, and it feels to me it's like a bit 50-50. You've got a lot of people have their own face, or what I imagine is their own face, but a lot of people have have avatars, or they have just different captures that will kind of like indicate the person behind there. But again, you don't have to really have anything that draws or connects anything to you. So I could post something mean and horrible to somebody down the road and they wouldn't know. All they see is this logo. But equally, my face could be in that thumbnail and I could post something mean and nasty. But if the person lives in Manchester or in Australia, they're never going to know who I am. And even if we're in London, what are the odds of them coming across me? And I think this is again about how social media works, in the sense that you could say, do whatever you want, and there are no consequences coming back on you, unless it's to such a nasty extent, such extreme extents, that the person that's being victimised, and I use that word victimised because that's what it is, being victimised, hounded, singled out, unless they have the courage to go to the police and report that. But I think there's not enough instances of that happening. People kind of like think, it's social, just leave it, don't respond, and they'll go away. Now, if you equate that to when you're growing up, how often did bullies just go away if you didn't respond? Not very often. Normally, if you don't respond, they just carry on because they see it as an easy mark. I know for one, my grandkids, the oldest, when she was being bullied at school, and this kind of goes on and off, where the message I'm giving to her is confront it. Don't let them do that. Show that person that you're not scared of them. And she's really timid at school. She's like a teacher's pet, lovely and all that. She doesn't want to do anything wrong, so she finds it very hard to be confrontational, which means then that the people bullying her able to kind of like seize on that and continue. And it took a lot of coaching, it took a lot of talking just to get her to say, no, enough's enough. And I'm kind of like, if somebody hits you, hit them back. Do not give them an opportunity to do that a second time. And she kind of like takes that to heart, and she does it a little, and she comes back and says it's still happening. But the example I'm kind of like giving is you've got to be really strong-minded to kind of like confront that. But how do you confront people being mean and nasty and trolling you if you don't know who they are? What steps do you have? And you kind of like go to the police, or you remove yourself from social media. You don't go onto that. But again, you're being penalised for being victimised, and it's really tough. And that's just as an individual who just is not famous, and is just a person like me. I could be that one who's been victimised, bullied, being called mean and nasty names, and there's no kind of like respite from that. You kind of like have to take yourself away and let it go. But then again, it's that kind of thing that why should I have to remove myself? Why isn't that person being the one who's being removed? And it comes down to the companies behind all of these platforms. Do we think they're doing enough to protect us from these kind of bullies? How are they monitoring these people who are trolling, who are posting nasty messages? At what point are they held accountable? And you can't like think, I think I read a figure somewhere that, I don't know, may have been like 3 billion people a day, or 1 billion people watch YouTube videos. A certain amount of people engage on Instagram and Twitter each day. That's each day. And you can't like think, how many billions of us are there on the planet? So it kind of like goes to kind of think, well, how much control do these companies have over the postings on their platforms? And how vividly are they? And that's not the right word, but how much are they monitoring what's going on? And I kind of feel as though they're not doing enough. There's not enough monitoring. There's a lot of free reign going out there. And you kind of like think about when we talk about social media, whether it's YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, it's all about freedom of expression and the ability to kind of like say what you want as long as it's within the boundaries. But what could be a boundary for one person may not be the same boundary for somebody else. And again, that comes down to this piece about people thinking it's okay to be mean and nasty to people deliberately and consistently, day in, day out. And it's not just social media. I think we've got the press, we've got to call it out to the tabloids as well, because they're the ones who also sensationalise what's going on. So if you're somebody famous, and I come back to Caroline Flack because this is exactly what happened to her. Now, nobody really knows what's gone on between her and her boyfriend, so I'm not even going to go there. But the press is like, well, let's just take this person, let's just push and push and push. Let's just keep on sensationalising what's going on with her. And let's just get all the dirt that we can and keep bringing it up, because from their perspective, they want to talk, they want to sell papers, they want to get themselves out there, get that publicity off the back of somebody else. But they take no responsibility for what they say. And whether you're the Daily Mail, the Sun, the Daily Express, whatever, it's all about your readership. It's all about getting those papers out there, selling them, being in the top one. Now, again, we kind of like come to her death, we find that it's suicide, and all of a sudden all of the things that those tabloids had written seem to have disappeared. Can't find them if you search for them. So they're kind of like admitting to, in my view, they're admitting their culpability about what happened to Caroline and their part in that. And they're not going to say it out front. Nobody's ever going to put their hands up, but they have got to take accountability for how far they went to push her to that extent. Now, yes, we know they've got to sell papers. They have a right to comment on what's going on in the public world, especially if it's a celebrity. But how far do you go? Where are the boundaries for newspapers to really think about not just selling the paper, but the impact that it will have on that individual that they're hounding? And again, I don't think they think. I think they kind of like see it as, let's just go there. We're not interested in the individual. We're only interested in what it does for ourselves, what it does for people reading us, how much it pushes us up there. How many more papers can we sell if we find another tidbit that we can throw at her? If we just kind of like revamp what we said a month ago, 2 months ago. Who's going to know? Readers are just interested in that gory bit of detail. And so, yes, we as readers have got to take accountability. If we weren't reading, if we weren't buying, then they wouldn't be selling. But again, their newspapers are putting it out there. They're putting it out there for us to read. And as an individual, sometimes you want to know what's going on in somebody's private life. You want to know what's been said. Not so much that you want to use it against them, but it's interesting. Sometimes it's more interesting than what's going on in your own life. And it gives you an insight into how the other half live. And again, that can be seen as just normal day-to-day living. But we don't do anything with it. As a reader, what do? We read it, we digest it, and then we move on. But some people read it, digest it, and post. They comment on it, and they take it as gospel for what that newspaper has said about an individual. And they don't know the facts. They're assuming that the newspaper have done their work, and then what they're reporting on is actually factual. So they've got a basis for grounding and writing that. But they don't always do that. They don't always have that. It's about sensationalism. And I think we as individuals sometimes forget that. And then you think about the person who's really mean and vindictive and has set their mark, set their sight on that one individual and just uses that as more material, more fodder to hound them with. But I think, excuse me, and again, it just pushes a person. It means how far can somebody get? You're in the public eye. She had everything taken away from her. Love Island, a new show. You know, she couldn't even see a boyfriend who, for all intents and purposes, wasn't going forward, denied the story that had happened. She was effectively on her own. A lot of her celebrity friends were no longer there for her, didn't want to be involved, didn't want to be seen to be a part of that in case it all went south, north, went down. So she kind of like was really isolated. And when you're isolated like that and you've got no one to turn to, it makes it harder to get up that day and carry on. On the day that she died, it turns out that the CPS had told her that they're going to go ahead with the case. There's going to be a trial. And it's like, and that to me might have been that bit that pushed her over. And it's all of these different things that come on. People aren't really thinking, I think, in this instance, in this specific instance about Caroline Flack, were they really thinking about the public interest? Were they really thinking about what it was doing to her? No. They were just looking at the bare bones, what's factual, what has been reported, and what do we need to report on? What do we need to do to carry this forward? Was it fair? I can't say. Not a lawyer, not a judge. I'm not in that realm of things to know. So I can't imagine what she must have been going through to get to the point where she felt she had to end her own life. But I think it just really just highlights and did highlight how things that are said, things that are written about, commented on, forwarded, retweeted, whatever you want to phrase it, just out in that open space have an impact on the individual. No matter how hard we think we are, no matter how much we try and immune ourselves against the nastiness that is being said and that is out there in the world, it impacts us, it affects us. You know, and sometimes I'm sure there are people who are just, you know, that close away from crying, giving it up and think I've had enough. But they manage to rally themselves, manage to bring it all back together and to get up and move forward. But it's tough, it's exhausting. And having to kind of like read that stuff day in, day out, even if you don't want to, you just can't help but bring yourself to look at it and to think, and then you start to doubt yourself, start to question yourself. And if you've been pushed to the extent that you're no longer talking with friends or family or even colleagues, it just makes it seem that little bit more real. And I think we as individuals have that power in us to kind of like stop making this happen, to start thinking about what we say, how it can be interpreted, how it can impact somebody in ways that we had never thought about. So following Caroline Flack's passing, and on the Love Island on the Monday episodes, you had that hashtag be kind. I mean, it only appeared for a day, which I thought was a bit sad. It could have been there for longer. But I think the message says it all, that we have to start thinking about what we say, what we do, and just be a bit kinder in our words, in our actions, so that people who are reading what we're saying or listening to what we're saying don't take it to heart and can kind of like say, okay, this is an interpretation of somebody's opinion, but it's not personal to me. And allow them to actually have that kind of like self-control, that self-discipline that says, I'm not going to take it personally, I don't need to take it personally. and just are able to just move forward. I think there are a number of ways we can express ourselves and still be true and genuine without going down that slippery slope of being mean and nasty to others. And I'm sure that there are thousands of people having similar conversations, similar thoughts, similar fears about, oh my God, that could have been me. And I hope they're taking this moment to just pause and just reevaluate whatever it is that's going on around them, with them, and just allowing themselves to think, no, I won't be pushed to this extent, to take a step back, to really kind of depersonalize it for them and allow them to think this is just somebody's way of getting themselves out and trying to influence me, but I won't let that happen. And I'm not sitting here thinking it's easy to kind of not take things to heart, to not take things personally. When I was a lot younger, I was completely like that. I remember growing up. I remember, I have come from a large family, mixture of boys and girls, and we weren't nice to each other all the time. And I always took it to heart. It took me a long time not to take things personally, but in the course of trying to get to that toughened state, you do take things to heart. You do take things personally. So I know from my own personal experience, what I'm saying isn't easy at all to do. But I think if we can just start to look into ourselves and know who we are and believe in ourselves, and know that we're not the person that's being portrayed, we're not the person that's coming off in those words, in those comments, that hopefully that gives us a little bit of comfort and allows us to kind of like brush it aside and just to ignore it. And I think that if things are really, really bad, really extreme, and if you are, reading them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever it may be, that perhaps removing yourself from that environment for a while will allow you to have time to reflect on what's being said and think about and take it for what it is, just viciousness and nastiness, and not let it impact you and impact your way of how you go about, to the extent that you're feeling bad about yourself. Hopefully that you have people that you can talk to, friends, family, etc., that can help get you through that. But I think if not, then go to the professionals. I mean, we've got the Samaritans out there, and there's other organisations that are able to listen and help talk people through, or even go to your doctor, a counsellor, be referred, whatever it may take to move you from feeling so bad about yourself that you're wanting to take your own life. Nobody wants people to feel like that, no matter how bad things are, no matter how mean people are being. I generally don't think people want it to go to that extent. And I really hope that whoever is out there, perhaps in this similar position as Caroline was, or is close to it, is really able to think more of themselves and talk to somebody, let somebody in, let them know how you're really thinking and feeling. But just don't go any further. Just really think about what you have, your life, what you've got to offer. There's so much out there for everybody, and no matter how difficult it may seem, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. There are always people who want to help you get to where you need to be and to continue on your life, continue to grow. Because life is too short. There's so much going on. We don't know where we're going to be from one day to the other. And we have to take each day as a blessing, and each day being thankful that we're here and able to go about our lives. And I think if it means you have to ignore what's being said, then do so. But please just remember, don't take it to heart. There are a lot of nasty people out there. A lot of people out there who are just mean and vindictive. But equally, there's a lot of people out there who are generally unsure or don't know how their words, how their comments are impacting others. So just think about you as an individual. If you're at that point, if you're at that place where you're thinking that everything is black and dark and you don't know how to move forward, take hope from who you are as a person. Be strong and help yourself. Talk to somebody, go see somebody, but don't take the next step, because it's just not worth it. And life will always go on. There's always something else, somebody else. So just please take a moment to think about who you are and what you stand for, and do what you can to just ignore what's being said. And if it's being said to you directly, confront it. Confront that person. Stand in their face and say, what is it you've got against me? Why are you saying these things? Because as we all know, bullies are cowards. People go around bullying. They're cowards inside, and more often than not, they're bullying because they've been bullied. But when you confront them, they have nothing to say and they can't stand up and do anything else. Once you confront a bully, 9 times out of 10 they stop, because you make them realise that you're not vulnerable, that they can't get you anymore. So if you can do that, if you know who it is, confront them. If you can't confront them on your own, confront them with somebody else who can be there for you. But don't allow them to dictate your life. Don't allow them to dictate your next steps. Don't allow them to push you to the edge that you can't take anymore. Now, I know there's a lot going on in this world, a lot going on in our lives, and I would just say to friends, family, colleagues, loved ones, be on the lookout. We all know the signs. We all can kind of like see when somebody's not being themselves, and we simply just have to ask the question, is everything all right? Is there anything I can do? Do you want to have a talk? Go for a coffee? I'm here for you. Sometimes just saying those words is all that it will take for that person to realise they're not alone. So, I hope everybody who's watching this video and is listening will just go out and be nice, be kind, and then just talk to your friends and family. And sometimes just talk to a stranger. If you see somebody on the train, on the tube, or on the bus who's not looking so great, ask if they're okay. It only takes a few moments, and I generally believe that just some nice, kind words can change a person's perception, stop them from thinking they're alone. And I'm going to aim to do it myself as well. If I see somebody looking vulnerable, looking sad, looking unhappy, I'm going to ask the question, is everything okay? And I will definitely go out to friends and families as well to make sure they're okay. And it's the people who perhaps you've not spoken to for a while, so you may not see a change. But just remember in the back of your mind, not everybody's in the same place as you. Not everybody's as happy as you are. And perhaps you're not happy yourself. So, be the person to go out and ask for help. Just be the person to go out and mingle with your friends. Get out of there. Get out of your comfort zone. And just do things differently. Because as I said before, life is too short. There's just so many different ways in which we have nastiness going on, that just to be nice to somebody, to think about when you're posting a comment, retweeting a comment, adding a comment, just saying anything, just think about what it is and does it need to be as bad, as harsh. Just think, just be nice, just soften it down a bit. You can still be true to yourself and genuine with what you want to say, what your opinion is and what matters. You can still get that out there, but you just need to think about how you say that. So I'm going to bring this to a close, and I hope that it's helped somebody, anybody. If just one person listens to this and does not take that next step to go into that dark place, then I think it's been worthwhile and useful. And as always, if you've got any comments, if you've got any questions, anything you want me to talk about or answer, then please leave a comment or go to my Twitter and Instagram and post a question. I will respond, and depending on what it is, if it's necessary or if I feel it warrants it or you want me to, I can do a video on it. So I hope that this has been of help, and I just hope that everybody just is a bit nicer, and that those who have been a bit vulnerable are able to take that extra bit of comfort knowing they're not alone, and that it's not the final step, that there are people out there who genuinely care about you and who want the best for you. So thank you for listening, and remember, keeping it fresh, keeping it real, and definitely keeping it middle-aged over here.